Hey, and welcome to another Weekend Pagan Perspective. You might have been wondering, well, at least I hope you've been wondering what's happened to me lately and where I'd gone and that sort of thing. Um, it seems that there were some changes to YouTube, or at least the way things were displayed around the end of last year, and the inbox, at least my inbox, just sort of disappeared. Now, the inbox is where I get the topics for the next month, and it's also where I store the rather complicated and hard to remember password for the Pagan Perspective channel hosts. So I was kind of locked out, and then coming off of the winter holiday break, my day job went from crazy to totally insane, and there were just, I'm working 12 and 14-hour days and not finishing, not meeting deadlines, which is frustrating to me. I like to meet deadlines. So, anyhow, I didn't have a lot of spare time to mess around with YouTube and try to figure it out. So, anyway, here I am back. Hopefully, not in too deep hot water over not being here. Didn't get any emails, folks. So if you really want to get in touch with me, Dancing Rabbit at Hotmail. So to the topics, the ones that I've missed, and so forth. First topic is a fairly long answer from Dear Hearted Witch. I would love to know what each one of you considers the most profound thing you've learned or experienced on your personal path. Um, I don't know that I have a one, totally awesome, um, life-shattering event. Um, a lot of the fundamentalist evangelical Christians could talk about when they were born again or got saved. The Pentecostal Christians when they received the Holy Spirit, and this was like would be a milestone. I think one of the most profound experiences I had was at Council for the Magical Arts Sawing Festival this past year. It was a men's and women's ritual. The women designed their part of the ritual, the group ritual, which involved creating sacred space, casting the circle, inviting the deities. I got to watch at least the last part of that from a distance, and it was very beautiful, very poetic. There was a lot of what looked almost like modern dance going on within the circle. The men had a completely different, excuse me, part in the ritual. We began at the far other end of Spirit Haven Ranch and formed a processional behind Anubis and Papa Legba. There were pallbearers carrying an empty coffin. And what we were doing was raking up, psychically raking up or scooping up the various negativities, the various things that we wanted to get rid of, to banish from the ranch. And as we approached the circle which the women had cast and the whole rest of the pagan gathering that was not leading or directly, doing something in the ritual, as we approached the circle, we approached with a muffled chant and muffled drum beats, sort of like a New Orleans funeral. The circle was open for us to enter, and we approached the firelight, which was not lit yet. And each of us, each of us walked forward. Anubis was holding a big, huge encyclopedia. Well, for those of you that remember paper encyclopedia, hard copy instead of Wikipedia. Anyway, he was holding a big book, and each of us guys approached Anubis and the book and wrote. We didn't speak. We wrote the negative emotion or quality that we wanted to banish in his book. I placed my hands on it and projected them into the book, and then we each in turn turned and faced well, I guess you can't face the whole circle, but we turned away from Anubis and loudly announced a sort of counterpoint positive that would be replacing that negative that we were banishing. When all of us guys had written in the book was placed in the coffin was placed on top of the fire lay, and the fire was lit. And the circle was opened, and it was revel fire time. So that, to me, I never participated in that way in a, excuse me, a little winter cold here, in that way in a large group ritual. I mean, I've had speaking parts, called quarters, or been the priest or whatever, but I've never participated in a group ritual that didn't so much have one or two star players. That was the entire group, the men's group doing this. It was very moving to me. Okay, the other questions will be very brief. Second question. I'm a solitary eclectic pagan. I know all the basics from history to ritual to holidays, ethics, and terms. I'm unsure of where to go from here. I feel like a lot of the information out there in books, YouTube videos, is covering the basics and not much more. I'm hungry to learn more, but I'm unsure where to turn to. Once a person has learned all the basics, what's the next step? Well, if you were part of a more or less traditional coven, your high priest, high priestess would either directly teach you or assign someone to teach you kind of the version of paganism, maybe 201 or 301 or graduate level, and you would maybe move up various degrees within that system. As a solitaire, we don't have that advantage. I've had other people, and I've also thought, along that line, why is this all the paganism 101, and, where's the more advanced stuff? Now, you could get into specific stuff like tarot reading or scrying or herbs, specialize in something. But where is the general next level? I touched on this in my book, and it is a beginner's book. But I really think where you go next is to begin to do what you know. You know all the basics, well, begin doing it. I'm not saying you aren't, but just begin to practice the basics. And as you do that, you will learn them better, maybe deeper. That's what they're there for. They're not just to learn intellectually, but they're to make a part of your life, a part of your practice. Even NBA stars practice the basics, dribbling, passing, and so forth. And they get better and better and better at it. And it becomes something that they do as a matter of course. One of my dear friends from back in Arkansas, and I think he's still in that area, maybe in North Louisiana now, a guy that we call Sharky, used to call me the everyday pagan because paganism is just part of what I do. It's not something that I just do in circle. And on the other hand, I don't run around, acting all ooky, spooky all the time trying to practice. It's just who I am. Next question. Firstly, thank all of you, blah, 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 wonderful resource. Don't believe this has been covered, may be of interest. Will you practice your faith with your family, especially if you plan on having children? If you were raised as pagan, did your family celebrate pagan festivals, traditions? How do you plan to celebrate your faith with your family? Or do you think they will choose not to share their faith with their children? My personal situation as a boyfriend has 2 daughters. We're currently trying to have a child together. I really value growing up with faith, religion, tradition. I was raised Christian, and would like for my children to have those same happy memories while still feeling they can choose their own path. Okay, that was a kind of a long question. Let me see if I can give a little shorter answer because I'm running on close to 10 minutes so far. I'm like older, 61. Feather and my children are grown. In fact, one of them has a daughter of his own. My parents have crossed over, they have died. Um, I was never open to them about my pagan path. I just didn't feel that they could handle it. I felt that they would be too upset, and it just wasn't worth the hassle. Now, I don't think that that's always a cop-out. I don't think that we have to be totally out of the closet to everybody at all times about everything. We have to choose our battles. My sister is still living, and she, as far as I know, is not aware of my paganism. She's a very conservative Christian, and I value our relationship, such as it is, kind of long distance, more than I value coming out to her. So, take that for what it's worth. It may or may not apply to your situation. My what I feel my best advice to you and your boyfriend and your stepchildren and then your possible children together would be is seek out and join the nearest Unitarian Universalist church or fellowship. UUA.org will give you more information, and it will also have a congregation locator thingy where you can find a congregation near you if there is one. I'm a member of Unitarian Fellowship of Houston, and it's a very liberal religion, very different from anything else in its open-mindedness and its acceptance. We have atheists and theists, liberal Christians, Buddhists, humanist, pagans, all worshiping together on Sunday morning. I'll be leading worship service at Fellowship on February 2nd, and I'm doing an emblic, a candle mass ritual, and a little talk and Q&A about it. I would highly encourage you to check that out. The religious education program that Unitarians have for children is very open-minded. It's not just go out and believe whatever you think you want to believe, but it really is about how to search out the various spiritual paths and determine for yourself which is most useful for you. In fact, one of the activities that's the coming of age ritual of a typical 13-year-old Unitarian is to write their own creed and then present it to the church. And you'll see some that are humanists, some are Christian, some are pagan, and some haven't really put a label on it yet and may not. And that's okay too. So that is my best, considered advice for you. Take a dollar and some change and go to most convenience stores and you can buy yourself a cold soda with it. So hope to be back after the subs week, and I have saved all the passwords, and if you guys at Pagan Perspective will send me by email the information about next month's topics, then I'll try to be a little more on time. Oh, before I go, one special announcement. Beginning in February, my book, The Way of the Horned God, will be on sale on Amazon for 99 cents plus tax if that applies wherever in the world you live. So I'd really appreciate if you don't have a copy, go to Amazon, look for Way of the Horned God. Its target market is boys age about 11 through 18, but it's applicable for pretty much any age, any gender, and although it is a beginner's book, it does go deeper, and it does encourage the reader to go deeper. Help me out there. I'm not cyber begging. 99 cents is small change. So, till next time, Dancing Rabbit, bye-bye.